Elias Grant stepped up to Gate 12 with the kind of presence that turned heads without trying. His polished graphite carry-on shimmered beneath the overhead lights, gleaming with the precision that defined his entire world. 4 days of closed-door strategy sessions, classified presentations, and sleepless nights had led to the breakthroughs he'd been chasing for over a decade. He wasn't just a name on the manifest. He was the architect of what came next in defense intelligence. But to the gate agent behind the counter, none of that mattered. The young man, tall, with a buzz cut and a badge that read, R. Carson, looked up briefly before zeroing in on Elias's bag. He didn't greet him, didn't ask for ID or boarding credentials. Instead, he nodded sharply at the carry-on and said flatly, "That's not going on board." Elias stopped short. His bag had been cleared by the Department of Defense, marked for priority transport, and scanned at every checkpoint. He'd flown with it dozens of times before without so much as a blink. But Carson didn't seem to care. There was something in the dismissive tilt of his voice that told Elias this had nothing to do with the rules. It was about control. "I believe there's a clearance tag on that bag," Elias said evenly, his voice calm but firm. He didn't raise it. He didn't need to. Carson shrugged. "Doesn't matter who cleared it. It's too big. Not going." Behind them, the gentle murmur of passengers moving through the terminal slowed. Elias didn't glance around, but he could feel the eyes, the attention. He'd been here before, not in this exact gate, not with this exact man, but he knew the shape of this moment. The cold wall of resistance. The silent question, "Do you really belong here?" To everyone else, it was just a bag. But for Elias, it was something else entirely. A line in the sand. His pulse ticked upward, not from anxiety, but from the tension of restraint. He could see Carson's smirk lingering, arms crossed, waiting for submission. But Elias had spent a lifetime defying expectations, climbing out of systems built to keep people like him quiet and on the sidelines. "This isn't about size," Elias said, his tone measured. "It's about something else, isn't it?" Carson's smirk tightened into something colder. "You can take it up with security. Or step aside." Elias didn't move. In a world run on power, Elias knew how to hold his ground. He had built Grant Vector Systems from the ground up, one of the leading private contractors in autonomous defense tech. His name was known in places most people would never be allowed to speak aloud. He didn't throw his weight around. He didn't have to, but some moments demanded it. "Scan it," he said again, now with an edge that demanded compliance. Carson stiffened. "I told you, I make the decisions here." Wrong answer. A quiet breath escaped Elias's lips as he reached into his inner pocket and retrieved his phone. In one swipe, he opened a secure app linked directly to defense and logistics clearances. On the screen, an authorization code with an encrypted seal from Orion Aviation, the military-grade carrier that handled all his transport. It was undeniable. Elias held it out without a word. Carson didn't even look. "I don't care what app you've got. My call stands." The words didn't anger Elias. They clarified everything. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't miscommunication. This was disrespect masquerading as protocol. And that, he couldn't ignore. He leaned in slightly, just enough for Carson to feel it. "Call your supervisor." Carson blinked. The moment lingered, taut as wire. But he didn't move. Elias raised an eyebrow. "Now." A few seconds passed. Then, reluctantly, Carson pressed the intercom button. "We've got a situation at Gate 12, he said, his voice clipped. "Passenger dispute." Elias remained still, calm. He knew the call had triggered more than just a response from a floor manager. His team was already active. They monitored his travel in real time, not because he needed protection, but because operational security demanded it. Every gate check, every scan, every delay, logged and analyzed. He'd made one silent call the moment Carson dismissed the app. Now, it wasn't just about his boarding. It was about the culture that had allowed this gate agent to believe that power could be used to humiliate others without consequence. Minutes ticked by. Passengers around the gate were no longer pretending not to watch. Some filmed. Some whispered. Carson shifted his weight, now visibly uncomfortable, as footsteps approached. A woman in a dark gray suit with a lanyard clipped to her blazer arrived. She surveyed the standoff quickly. "What's going on here?" she asked. "Bag's oversized. He's refusing to comply," Carson said, gesturing to Elias. The supervisor turned to Elias, who offered the phone again, the clearance still on screen. She took one glance, her eyes narrowing with concern. Then she turned back to Carson. Step aside. What? I said step aside, she repeated more firmly. Carson hesitated, jaw tightening. But the supervisor was already inspecting the bag, confirming the tags. Mr. Grant, I'm sorry for the inconvenience. Please proceed. We'll have the bag secured and stowed as per your clearance. Elias gave her a slight nod. Thank you. But he wasn't done. I'd like the names of your terminal director and security liaison, he said calmly. The supervisor blinked, then nodded. Of course. By the time Elias boarded the aircraft, his team had already pushed preliminary findings to his tablet. Carson's employee record, prior complaints, patterns of behavior, all buried, all ignored. The report was forming. By the time Wheels left the tarmac, Elias had already dictated the executive summary of a 42-page document outlining not just his incident, but the broader implications of a terminal-wide issue at Orion Aviation. He wasn't out for blood. He was out for reform. By the end of the week, the report had landed in the inboxes of the airline's board members, external compliance auditors, and multiple agencies that govern transportation ethics. The blowback came fast. Media caught wind. Employees from terminals around the country began submitting anonymous testimonials. Former staff came forward with their own stories. Carson's name was trending on professional misconduct forums. A movement had begun. The airline scrambled to respond. Carson was suspended, then terminated. But Elias didn't stop there. He made public appearances, not for vengeance, but to use the moment as leverage to demand industry-wide changes, bias training, external oversight, reform and security protocols. He wasn't interested in performative apologies. He wanted measurable transformation. And he got it. The Department of Transportation opened an internal review. Orion Aviation stock dipped, then rallied as they announced a sweeping overhaul. New leadership, new policies, independent monitoring. Carson never resurfaced. His name, once spoken with quiet authority behind the gate desk, had become a cautionary tale. And Elias Grant? He didn't linger in the spotlight. He moved on to the next project, the next battle. But the legacy of Gate 12 remained, a reminder that dignity isn't negotiable and silence isn't always strength. Sometimes, the most powerful revolution begins with a quiet, firm no, and a man who refuses to move.